Good morning, everybody. We are live yet again for Environmental Social Justice, and I wanted to wish all veterans out there happy Veterans Day. Joy, do you have any family members or friends who are veterans that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I don't actually, not any that are local. I do have an uncle that served in the military, and two cousins back in New Jersey. But locally, I don't have anybody to you celebrate with. But happy Veterans Day. I
Absolutely.
mean, you definitely are winners in my book.
Right. Well
And
played.
Joel, do you have any family or friends that are veterans that you'd like to give a shout out to?
My grandfather, who is no longer with us, was in the military for a while. So yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I do have a friend who's local, my friend Hector Camacho. He met him at Grill in the Alley. And when I met him, there was no way he was a veteran because he looks so young. I was like, there's no way you're in Vietnam. Not possible. And he's like, yeah, in the 70s. I'm like, oh my God. He looks like he's in his 40s or 50s. So it's amazing. So today we are talking about, again, the election. Still, people are torn. But what we can discuss is we have had about, 125 environmental rules and policies.
Over 100, yeah.
Yeah, rolled back, and I think there are 40 waiting in the wings. And regardless of your party line, let me just go back and explain why these rules matter. Primarily, this is your air quality, your water quality, what's allowed to be dumped, what's allowed to be drilled. So why does this matter to us sitting in our homes in Los Angeles, let's say you're in Connecticut, let's say, you're in Washington State? Everything is connected. This is what, when we talk about the environment and sustainability, we talk about systems thinking. Everything's connected. I call it the chain reaction. So you pump a bunch of pollution in the atmosphere starts to create this sort of greenhouse gas effect. Heat stays in. That heat goes back to the earth, gets absorbed mostly by the ocean. Ocean's water's warm. That is absolutely triggered to hurricanes. There's 50 years of hurricane data that supports that. Simultaneously, warmer air absorbs more water. We get these rain bombs. That's a new word. And then drier areas for us, where we don't get the rain, we get these wildfires. So we're all connected. So this is why it matters to not keep destroying something so fragile. And we're getting to a point where we're kind of getting to a point of no return. And I know that our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation are sick and tired of hearing it. They've been saying, we've heard about this since the 70s. Everything's awful. The world's going to end. We're not going to end. We're just going to have a little trouble breathing. I mean, where was it? Was it Beijing, where the particulate matter was so bad from coal burning that you couldn't see and you couldn't breathe, and everyone wore heavy masks? Not just, the little cloth things that we wear now, but like, honest to God, respiratory masks. So, Joy, going to put you on the spot, regulatory standpoint. Why do you think it's so important that, one, and most importantly, we re-enter the Paris Agreement? Because there's a lot of argument for and against it. And I'll let you go on the for.
Well, good morning, everybody. Advocacy does matter. All of the plethora of people that Wendy just described, different countries, your family, my family, we're also dealing with third world countries here that really can't advocate for themselves. So agreements like the Paris Agreement help even the smallest of communities in the most obscure place in some of these rainforests even, or in the depths of Africa. We're advocating for them too, as we get together as a global community to be able to come across some guidelines that will dictate right and wrong, not only for our future generations, but for people who can't advocate for themselves. So, the Paris Climate Agreement, as well as funding that's going to come into the state of California now that Trump is leaving office, those things matter. I was telling somebody the other day that there's a big hiring boom, even at the state right now, just predicated on the results of this election, and that California can breathe easier, literally and figuratively, as far as finances are concerned. You have the governor who's able to now start allocating some money away from, wildfire disaster relief in order to put money into other parts of the environment, just not catastrophe. So this whole election means a whole lot to not even just the global community, but the California community as well.
Do you think it's right, though, to divert funds from the wildfire fund? Because we still have catastrophic wildfires. And
we wouldn't be diverting money. What we would be doing is now we can depend on our federal funds for money that the governor has already allocated to various parts of our state government. We are pretty confident that those funds will come through at the federal level under the Biden-Harris administration, and we can plan accordingly instead of having to use emergency funds for any and everything that happens, in environmental. We could actually use the federal funds for federal wildfire or disaster relief that can be allocated the way that it's supposed to be allocated, and then we can go ahead and start planning for our environmental future again.
So Joel, I know that one of the things Biden says the second he steps into office, he's re-entering that Paris Agreement, which will cost trillions of dollars for the U.S.
Yep.
We don't have a whole lot of money, and COVID kind of screwed things up with a serious homeless situation that, as you know, is only going to get worse.
Yep.
Do you think this is responsible funding that we're doing right now?
Yes. I'll make that. That's an easy one. That's just a yes.
Why?
Because we have to. I mean, here's the thing. You're talking about.
I'm on your side.
No, I know. You want to basically the powerhouses of the world, like Joy was saying. You have to lead by example. And if one of the biggest economies, if not the biggest economy in the global world, in our entire world, is not leading, we are no longer a part of the conversation. So if we pull ourselves out, we have no right to say anything. And how was we? I mean, we want to call ourselves a leader. We want to call ourselves a leader of the free world, but yet we're not going to be a part of these things. Like, that makes literally no sense. I mean, and as we start
more than everybody else.
Well, when you're the biggest economy, you have more to give, and you should be. We want to be. If we want to call ourselves a leader, we have to lead. It's as simple as that. And I know you're playing devil's advocate because you're trying to rile me up. Well played.
But there are legitimate questions that I'm trying to pull in opinions from everyone,
right.
Not just.
If you want to lead, you have to take the biggest share, and you have to lead by example. That's just the only way. That's the way every single thing in the world works. If we don't do it,
those agreements. I'm sorry, Joel. The way we left those agreements, it's like leaving your children at the county fair. And not coming back. They're all still just waiting for us to lead an example. Our innovation, our energy innovation alone in the state of California, not even the rest of the country, is something that the global world looks up to. Whether it's cars, electrification of vehicles, zero emissions. Net zero,
And California is the 6th largest economy in the world, in the absolute world. So for us not to be a part of these conversations is asinine.
So we're the 6th, 1 through 5, that are bigger. Who are these other people? These other countries?
I'd have to Google that.
But what he's saying is the state of California.
Yeah. Just the state.
Just the state of California is the 6th biggest economy in the world. So that's California alone.
California alone. So who would you say so are you saying the United States is the largest economy in the entire world?
Is it China or the US? It's one of those two, I would imagine. I don't know off the top of my head.
China's number 2. Are they equally contributing?
Probably not.
No,
but if they're
I think that China just has so many people as well, and the per capita income is not the same.
They did make
carbon
zero by 2060, I believe, so 40 years.
And we pull out of this agreement, which says we don't have to do anything. We don't have to be a part of a conversation. We don't even have to be at the table.
No.
That's why, if nothing else, that's why you have to be in this. This is meant to bring the nations together to lead by example. we know that the biggest polluters and the biggest economies, if we don't do anything as a collective whole, nothing is going to happen. You can't just say, okay,
worldwide, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, I can't expect a small third world country to have the same,
of course not,
result as, or not say result, but the same contribution level. You just can't.
I'm not asking. Yeah. I'm just thinking that there are other very large countries with ample funds and economies that could probably contribute more than they currently are, and perhaps be on par with what we're doing, rather than carrying the.
But I think, but it also goes back to what Joy was saying. It's like, we have the innovation, we have the technology, we have the different things here where we can lead. We have to be the ones. We can't rely on everybody to do. See, there you go. Thank you, Mikey. So we are number one. Our GDP is number one by over. Japan. So it's like, it's kind of a non-starter to just say that we can't contribute more. We have more, we contribute more. That's just kind of like, I mean, that goes down to just life in general. It's like, you look at the tax code. If you make more, you pay more tax. Well, let me rephrase that. Theoretically.
I wish it
theoretically.
That.
But I mean, it's like, you have to contribute more in order to be able to lead the conversation.
And I'm not disagreeing with contributing.
I know.
I just think that our certain percentage might just be a little out of proportion with what others,
But you can't gauge it by that. You can't gauge it by just the percentages. I think you have to look at personally, I think you have to look at the big picture. It's not just the monetary contribution. It's what else are we doing in addition to just that. So it's not just saying like, okay, everybody does 10%. Okay, great. So we would do 10%, plus we would also do these other avenues as well. If 10%, nobody's leading. So somebody has to step up and say, we're going to do more, but we're going to be the main ones behind it. And I think that's kind of the way you balance everything out.
I think we do have some great innovators.
Yes.
Oddly enough, in the past 10 years, though, a lot of our engineers and scientists who were educated in the U.S. went back to their home countries. That was a first time in a few decades where they would come to the U.S., get their education, and stay and build here. Now they're going back and saying, well, I'm taking my knowledge now and I'm going to help my country. That's been a change.
And there's no, okay, so I'll just go ahead and say it. What's the perk of staying here? The companies are leaving because of the tax code. There's no reason for companies to stay here anymore. They can go out there and get cheaper labor. So they can, there's no reason. We've kind of done this to ourselves. Let's just be frank. We've done, the way that we've set everything up is for everybody to come here, get everything, and then leave. What's the impetus to stay here? Seriously.
Well, no, we do need to change that. And that's, again, going back to the whole thing of sustainability with people, planet, profit. People. So you go to another country to get that cheap labor, child labor, people that get paid 10 cents a day. That is not okay.
No. God, no.
But we as consumers who go to Walmart, who go to JCPenney, who go to these to Target, and they have like their glossy marketing advertising saying, green or circular economy, things like that. But it's actually, and they have
iPhone is made in China.
Yeah, I mean, and they try to control that. So Walmart actually has done a lot of programs to make sure they're sourcing materials from ethical people. But they have so many different distributions. I mean, it's massive. They can't put their finger in every single one. So they try, but in reality, they do have situations that pop up where it's not the greatest of working conditions. And when they do find them, they cut them off. They're like, we're done.
Oh, that was all about the 80s and 90s then.
Guys, I mean, I was reading in the newspaper talking about this. Walmart had to discontinue a coconut water because whoever the coconut water producer was using monkey labor to climb the trees.
Right.
So capitalists will use anybody, and I have nothing against the capitalists, but they'll use anything or anybody, environmentally, if they could find a monkey to literally put together something that we use or drink or that's good for us, by golly, it's just the way that it is. And at some point,
and then there's nothing wrong with it. It's a monkey. What do they care? They don't see.
Apparently, they're thinking monkeys are abused. I guess you have to chain the monkey somewhere, and to make sure the monkey doesn't run off from the job, which we'd all do if somebody asked us to pick coconut. But what Joel is saying is at some point, we all have to take some sort of responsibility. And why not let it be us? Why not let that be a budget line in our budgets or our taxes or what have you, that we are making a social stance. We can afford it. Whatever was given to us, we are giving back in the way of innovation that's only going to help us and our children, as well as,
7 generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go back to rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, okay, so think about what this is going to mean for all of us. This is going to mean solar energy, and wind energy. It's going to mean jobs, which is the one thing that, guess what, we desperately need right now. We have to get back on track and create a middle class again, because it's been obliterated.
Please understand, and because I sit in on so many webinars, I think my brain's going to explode. So I was on one with the energy industry, and there was a man who represented the oil and gas industry. So we cannot just shut off oil and gas right away. We need to phase. We have too many products that rely on it. But he made a valid point. He said a man who works on a rig and making X amount of dollars cannot translate that job into solar or wind for the same. It'll be a 40% decrease. So that's not fair to him. Now, I'm not saying get rid of his job and move it. I'm saying phase that. So don't train younger generations, train the younger generations for the solar side, the wind side, and have this transition happen. But it's going to take decades.
But it has to start.
It does have to start. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and the reality is, okay, so let's look at the guy who's working on the oil rig. Why is he making so much money? Because the fact that is an incredibly dangerous job, and you're putting your life on the line by being there. So these are the trade-offs that have to happen here, is that, and I don't want anybody to get pay cuts. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. It's that as this new technology comes online, because sorry, my thoughts are all over the place. Coal mines are being shut down. They're not coming back. Fracking is probably not the best thing in the world, since you have earthquakes in DC now and all these locations where they do it. They are correlated. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like, as we start changing their technology, the people who have lost their jobs can get educated. You're going to get a paid education to go into the next level. And then from there, your families that have been doing coal mining for generations and generations, guess what? The generations is probably going to go from the coal mines, getting education in solar, and it's going to keep going into that new level. People just have to stop fighting change. And it
is a fight for change. It really is.
There's a lot of fear involved with change as well.
Which is understandable. Change is not easy for anybody. And you're talking about generations and ways of livelihoods here. So you're asking people to have a bit of faith, but by going back into this, we're going to be able to open up these new industries to have these jobs for people. Whether these are important things that people have to do, and we have to be open to it and stop trying to live the same life we've been living, because it's not doing any good, and it is changing whether we want to or not.
Well, we've reached a level of pollution that's pretty critical.
What's that?
We've reached a level of pollution that's gone pretty critical.
Oh, yeah. Well, I use my Aquanet all the time, so I've contributed. No, I'm joking. I remember that from the 80s. Aquanet and the ozone layer.
I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. Oh, that peroxide. I know you.
I haven't done. I got to do that today. Whatever.
There we go. Yeah. Sun. But I don't know. I mean, going back to the job thing, it's going to take probably 20 to 30 years for a full transition. Mm-hmm. Do we have that kind of time left for the contamination pollution side of things? The greenhouse gases being pumped into the air.
We don't have a choice.
Well, some people think the end of the world's coming in 10 years. I've talked to the younger generation, 20s. And I had one girl say to me, she's like, well, in 10 years, it's over.
Well, let's just say in 10 years, it's not over. It's a matter of, the horse before the cart.
But then again,
it's going to be a situation where we're just going to have to just keep on pushing. Whichever one wins out is going to win out, unfortunately.
But that's the whole issue that I'm having, is there's so much fear out there on both sides. Fear of change, but fear of not changing fast enough. Well, we have, 20s, 30, not even 30s, but the 18 to 25-year-olds, I guess, honestly think that we're on a destructive path of no return. And that's.
But here's the thing, and everybody's sitting there, that argument of like, I'm afraid to change, I'm afraid we're not doing enough, is keeping us from doing anything. And that's the problem, is that it's not, nobody's saying jump in 100% full force, but we have to start making a gradual evolution. There's no denying it. There is just no denying that climate change is real. And these industries are coming and are here. Either we're going to lead the path on it, or somebody else is going to do it, and we're going to be left in the dirt.
Well, we're not in the dirt right now because all of Europe is heaps ahead of us. I mean, I talk to people all over the world, and people in Sweden have nailed it. My people, the Vikings, they have nailed it. Those guys, everything is locally sourced, everything's modular, everything's recycled. I mean, it's phenomenal what they've got. And I'm sitting there saying, can we come play with you? I'd like to come over and play because we could learn. And so
we're living in it's an uncertain world that we are living in right now. It just is. I mean,
and I think the ending question is basically how do each one of us individually and as conscious groups like we are, how do we want to lead the world? Yeah. And how much of a fight are we willing to put in? Which, between the three of us, we'll fight like.
That's why we're doing this. Keep talking, keep discussing, keep educating. And yes, the college kids do care because I talk to them constantly. I do these presentations and they reach out to me from UCLA and they say, I'd like to talk to you about this because some are scared. Some are legitimately scared. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. We're not that, we are fragile, but we're not glass. We're not going to break apart. So, but there, there's fear on both sides. There's fear of it falling apart and everything burning up. And then there's fear of change of how do I go from doing one thing one way to another thing another way. And I think, and going on Joy's comment, we're getting there. And I think there's going to be more and more events and climate friendly things developing where people will learn without realizing they're learning, if that makes sense. Like you'll go to something and say, oh, all these new technologies are out there that are available today that I can buy that will, cut my carbon footprint. I mean, I just saw an article today that Airbus has come up with hydrogen jets that actually might be able to completely cut out the transatlantic carbon footprint. Brilliant. Love it. Huge. That would be huge. So actually, we've gone over, but Joel, I'll let you close it out. I'll let you have the final thought.
I think the main thing that we have to do is realize that we've got to stop arguing with each other over every single point and actually come together and to have a dialogue, because that is the only way that you move forward. Not one side is perfect. Not one side is 100% accurate. You have to look at the other standpoint to find the common ground. And that's how you build things. That's the only way that we move forward. So that's what I'm hoping that we can get to, is go back to the day where people just spoke and listened to each other and really came together for the greater good. That's what I hope. That's my hope.
I agree with you. And Joy, any final thoughts?
No, just stay conscious, everybody. Just stay, think daily on how you want this world to look. And we just keep kind of moving on from there, sharing our thoughts and ideas, and that's how stuff happens. So
I agree. And the younger generation, I have to say, a lot of them are so forward thinking, it's unbelievable. So on that, thank you, everybody. This was a great conversation. We will see what happens next week. Have a lovely day, and happy Veterans Day again to all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service. You guys are amazing. I can't even put into words how I feel about veterans. So thank you. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.